Welcome back everyone. This is What If Naruto Went to Yu-Gi-Oh After War. Make sure to support Burning Shadow Wolf for this fanfic. Like and sub if you want to, if not that's okay too. Without any further ado, let's start. Come on, you all can do better than this. Standing on the shore of the creek that ran through the clearing his home was built in, arms crossed and expression hard, Naruto looked every bit the unforgiving slave driver his friends now thought him as. Speaking of his friends, all of them were sprawled out on the ground in front of his home, panting heavily and showing all the signs of exhaustion and fatigue. Only Alexis and Zane had managed not to completely collapse from the intense workout they had just been put through, Alexis because she had been training longer and her stamina was improving, and Zane because he refused to give in to his body's limits. It had been 2 weeks since Naruto's duel with Harrington, and in that time, he had been pushing his friends to the limit in their training. The fact that he was suspended from dueling for a month freed him up to focus solely on his and his friends' training. And a simple shadow clone took care of his classes and any work he had. This left him free to do whatever he wanted, and when he wasn't running his friends into the ground with physical training to increase their yang chakra, he was in the clearing where he and his mother had fought against Jinzo, doing his own training to keep his skills sharp. With pained grunts and groans, the 7 trainees forced themselves back on their feet. Despite how hard he was being with them, Naruto had to give his friends credit. Most genin would have collapsed a long time ago with the kind of workout he was making them do, but they were proving none of them were the type to give up, despite their pain. Alright then, since you all have been at this for a while now and your progress has been coming along nicely, I think it's time to begin your chakra control training. That brightened everybody's spirits. Finally they would truly begin training to control their powers, or in Alexis's case, get back to it. Now the first step in learning chakra control is the leaf exercise. Picking up one of the fallen leaves near his feet, Naruto placed it to his forehead and removed his finger. He smirked at the surprised expressions on his friends' faces, with the exception of Alexis, as the leaf stayed firmly in place. Even when he bent over and shook his head, the leaf didn't budge. You must focus your chakra to a point behind your forehead and use it to hold the leaf in place. If you don't use enough, the leaf won't stick too much, you'll blow it away. Since this will be your first attempt at actively moving your chakra, I suggest you use the meditative state I've had you work on this last week. It will help tremendously while you get used to the feeling of your chakra. Pardon me, Naruto, I know none of us are anywhere near the point yet, but I was wondering if you could give us a demonstration of what one can do with proper control over their chakra. Everyone nodded in agreement with Bastion's idea, all of them wanting to see what they might one day be capable of. Flashing the raw genius a smirk, Naruto was all too happy to oblige. Very well, watch closely. Crouching down, the blonde shinobi focused a small, intense burst of chakra to his legs and rocketed toward the sky. Once he reached the apex of his flight, he used wind manipulation to hover in the air momentarily, taking in the astounded faces of his audience. Twisting himself around he began his descent back to earth, head first. 3 female shrieks reached his ears, accompanied by the shouts of alarm from the males present. Their worry was for naught however, as just before he reached the ground, Naruto flipped himself upright and landed in a crouch, a small crater forming due to the force of the impact. Straightening himself up, smirk still firmly in place, he addressed his now gaping friends. That is one way chakra can be applied to enhance a person's physical abilities. Another, more common use, is using chakra to walk on surfaces that are normally impossible to walk on, such as water. To emphasize his point, he took a few steps backwards, and instead of falling into the water, he stood firmly and steadily of its surface, as if it was solid ground. Walking on water is an exercise you'll be learning once you master the leaf exercise and the one that follows it. So you better hurry and get started. The sooner you finish, the sooner you get to the good stuff. That was all the incentive they needed to begin the exercise in earnest, each of them sitting down to meditate while trying to stick a leaf to their forehead. Since she had been training with Naruto longer than the others, Alexis was a little farther along and was trying to stick multiple leaves to different points on her body. She also didn't require the meditative state to help move her chakra, since she had been moving it on her own for a few months now. With his friends all focused on the exercise, Naruto sat down to do some meditating of his own. Assuming the pose Fukasaku had taught him, it wasn't long before he found himself once again inside of the sword that was his mind. Before he had been brought to this time, he had managed to alter his mindscape from the sword that he now stood in, but it seemed that as he was brought forward in time his mindscape had reverted to its original form. Sighing softly, Naruto set to work on altering his mindscape yet again. Unfortunately, altering one's mind wasn't as easy as picturing what you wanted and snapping your fingers to change it. It required a slow, methodical approach to change, elsewise you ran the risk of causing irreversible damage to your psyche, or worse, shutting your entire mind down, killing yourself in the process. So as the sewer walls slowly faded into oblivion, Naruto watched as the memories of his life played out before his eyes. His successes, his failures, the faces of his friends and loved ones in their final moments all passed through his mind's eye, causing a single tear to slide down his face. "Everyone, please forgive me, I wasn't strong enough to protect you," he thought as the memories finally ended. Looking around him, he found that his mindscape had been completed. Instead of the dark foreboding sewer that he arrived in, the blonde found himself standing in a lush green forest, but it wasn't just any forest, it was the forest of Konoha. Off in the distance, the once proud Hokage monument could be seen, the faces of the 5 Hokage ever vigilant over their domain. A small, sad smile formed on Naruto's face as he gazed at the mountain, his conscience fading from the forest. Opening his eyes, the blonde found himself back in the real world, looking into the face of concerned Alexis. He raised an eyebrow at his fellow blonde, silently asking what was wrong. As she reached towards his face, only then did he notice the dampness on his cheek. Wiping away the offending tear before Alexis could, Naruto offered her his best disarming smile. It didn't seem to work as Alexis's face remained set as one of concern. "Why were you crying, Naruto-kun?" She may have only used the suffix originally to tease him, but over the last 2 weeks, she had stuck to using it regularly. It was their personal way of referring to each other, though Mindy and Jasmine constantly insisted they were their pet names for each other. "It's nothing, Asuka-chan," he said, using his own nickname for her, "just some old memories agitating an old wound." Frowning at the cryptic answer, Alexis held her gaze for another few moments, hoping Naruto would crack and tell her the truth. All she got for her efforts was another disarming smile, causing her to sigh before relenting and giving the male blonde a smile of her own. It may have irked her that she couldn't get any answers out of him, but she knew when to stop pushing the subject. Naruto had told her many times that he would tell her everything, he just wasn't ready to relive whatever pain those memories would bring yet. "Hey Naruto," called Cirrus, who was currently hunched over, breathing heavily. It was only then that Naruto noticed that everyone seemed to be in a similar state, likely from all the effort of moving their chakra for the first time. "Yes, Cirrus," said the blonde with a raised eyebrow. "Do you think we could take a break?" There were a few murmurs of agreement from the others as well. Naruto chuckled slightly, but not at all the same as he stood up. "Sure, you guys have put in a good day's work, so we'll stop here for now. Tomorrow we'll pick up with a leaf exercise and then begin some scrimmage duels, so make sure your decks are ready. But Naruto, the chancellor banned you from dueling for the month. If they find out you defied them, you'll be expelled," said Mindy. Her concern was reflected by many of the others, bringing a small smile to Naruto's face. "Don't worry guys, I won't duel, I'll just act as the judge and give you all tips and advice, alright?" With that, Naruto began walking towards his house, motioning everyone to follow. "Now enough of that, let's head inside and relax, you all have earned it." Everyone nodded in agreement and followed the blonde into his abode and settled down in the living room, while Naruto went to prepare some snacks for everyone. Time passed quickly for the group of friends as they relaxed together, watching some TV and making small talk. It was times like this they appreciated most, just relaxing and acting like regular teens, no worries from classes or the pressures that come with being a duelist. Even Zane, the most serious person on the island, let go of some of that seriousness during these times and opened up a bit more to the others. He had even revealed to Cirrus that the only reason he was so harsh and critical of the Slifer's dueling skills was because he knew that Cirrus had the potential to become one of the best duelists out there. Needless to say, Cirrus had reacted in his typical emotional way, giving Zane a big hug and promising he wouldn't let him down. That had really helped mend the fractured bond between the brothers and allowed them to start rebuilding the closeness they had lost. It had also greatly helped boost Cirrus's confidence, and that confidence was reflected in his skills and demeanor. Speaking of the youngest Truesdale brother, he said something that caught everyone's interest. "Oh man, I can't believe that Yugi's deck is going on tour and the first stop is here at Duel Academy." "I must agree, Cirrus, having the chance to see the most powerful deck in the world is quite the opportunity," Bastion said as he turned his attention to the bespectacled duelist, "not to mention this will provide great insight into the inner workings and relationships of the King of Games deck and how they function together." "Sorry Bastion, but that's probably not going to happen," cut in Naruto, a knowing smirk plastered on his features. "Why is that Naruto?" asked Alexis, voicing the question everyone wanted an answer to. Naruto's smirk never wavered as he took a sip of his water, prolonging the silence before he answered, "Yugi's deck is going on tour, but they won't be displaying each of the cards in the deck individually, only a select few will be set up for display, while the rest remain stacked in the deck." This caused a few groans among the circle of friends. It seemed they were all hoping to see what made the King of Games deck so invincible. Not that Naruto could blame them. "Though my sources tell me that for the first stop here at Duel Academy, they'll be setting up Yugi's 5 best cards for viewing, not counting the Egyptian gods of course." "Really? Yugi's 5 best cards?" 𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐵 exclaimed, causing Naruto to chuckle slightly. Next to 𝐸𝐶h𝐝 was the most excitable one of their little group, especially when it came to Duel Monsters cards. Yep, and I'm not telling you which ones they are, so don't bother asking. Both 𝐸𝐶's and 𝐸𝐝's faces fell at being denied prior knowledge about which of Yugi's cards were gonna be on display, but they quickly got over it as they began speculating which ones they might be. All conversation stopped though as everyone's PDAs went off simultaneously. Naruto was the first one to get his out and quickly skimmed over the message before everyone else. That was the only reason he managed to grab onto Alexis and Zane and escape from the room before 5 voices shook his home to its foundations. The tickets are going on sale now. What came next could only be described as chaos. The 5 friends charged out of the house, crazed gleams in their eyes as they raced to the card shop to purchase their tickets. On the roof, Naruto, Alexis and Zane could only watch as the 5-person stampede sped away from them. That was too close. The 2 obelisks finished at the same time. After sharing a quick laugh, the 3 climbed down and started following their friends, though at a much more sedate pace. Card shop 10 minutes later. When the 3 finally arrived at the campus card shop, it was to find a crowd of students huddled together and watching what could only be a duel inside the shop. Having a feeling that it was one of their friends dueling, the 3 walked forward to investigate with the crowd parting like the Red Sea around them. They were right in their assumption cause as soon as they reached the front of the crowd, they found 𝐸𝐶 dueling against a member of the Ra dorm. Why exactly is 𝐸𝐶 dueling? Asked Naruto, noticing Bastion and the others nearby. By the time we got here, there were only a handful of tickets remaining. 𝐸𝐶 and Dimitri are dueling to determine who will get the last remaining ticket, said Bastion as Dimitri activated Heavy Storm, destroying his 2 face-down cards. Just like in Naruto's duel with Crowler, 2 golden, serpentine creatures rose from the destroyed cards. Isn't that the same strategy Dr. Crowler used against you, Naruto? Pointed out Alexis. Naruto nodded with his arms crossed. It is. In fact, the way things are going, I wouldn't be surprised if, before the blonde shinobi could finish, Dimitri's 2 tokens disappeared in a flash of light. Out of that light came a very familiar, lumbering monster, the ancient gear golem. So he is using Crowler's deck, talk about being a copycat. You don't know the half of it, began Bastion. Dimitri is a copycat duelist. He copies the decks, strategies, even the personalities and speech patterns of great duelists. It seems he has chosen Crowler as his newest template. An explosion interrupted their conversation. Looking back towards the duel, they discovered 𝐸𝐶 holding the last ticket and Dimitri on his knees, obviously having lost. With the spectacle over, the gathered crowd began to disperse, but not without a few jeers being shot at the defeated duelist. Man, talk about pathetic. How did Dimitri get into raw yellow if he can't even beat a Slifer slacker like Truesdale? A second-year obelisk said, only to pale when he caught sight of Zane. Many other students, who looked ready to say something, quickly vacated the area as well, for fear of incurring the wrath of the elder Truesdale brother. One comment, however, drifted over the noise of the retreating students. I guess copying a great duelist isn't the same as being a great duelist. Just goes to show how useless a copycat is. Unnoticed by all, Naruto's entire body had stiffened for a brief moment before he forced himself to relax. That single comment had sparked a vengeful fire in the normally calm blonde. It didn't matter who the snide remark had been directed at, that statement had stomped on the memory and legacy of his sensei. Making a mental note to prank the one who had said it, Naruto focused back on reality and saw 𝐸𝐶 being congratulated by their friends. Off to the side, Bastion was attempting to talk to Dimitri, but the defeated duelist wasn't willing to listen and ran out of the card shop. As he ran past, Naruto locked eyes with the raw duelist and saw something that caught him off guard. Underneath all the resentment and pain, Dimitri possessed a burning desire to prove himself, to show everyone who mocked him that he could be a great duelist. It was a look Naruto was very familiar with, after all, he had possessed a similar desire during the academy and his days as a genin. Oh no. 𝐸𝐶's shout drew everyone's attention. What is it, Sai? Asked Alexis. Well, you see, I just won the last ticket and Bastion, 𝐸𝐶 and the girls got theirs already. But that means there aren't any tickets left for you 3. He's right, said Bastion dejectedly, maybe if we had gotten here a few minutes sooner, but unfortunately it doesn't appear that you 3 will be able to go. Don't sweat it, Bastion, said Naruto as the 5 who had gotten their tickets started to look guilty, the 3 of us will be fine. There are other ways to get tickets, you know, he finished with a smirk. Everyone gave him puzzled looks or raised an eyebrow in Zane's case, wondering what the blonde meant by that. At night, raw yellow dorm. I don't get it. Dimitri raged, knocking a stack of papers off his desk with a swipe of his arm. I watch and I study, but still I lose. Slamming his fists onto the polished dark wood surface, the lone copycat duelist of the island continued to scream his frustrations. If copying great duelists doesn't work, then what will Crowler's deck, Zane's and 𝐫𝐴's, all of them were useless. With another frustrated cry, he lashed out again, knocking even more papers off his desk. A soft glint of light caught his attention though, stopping him before he could continue to vent his anger. Taking a closer look at the object revealed it to be a laminated flyer, promoting the tour of Yu-Gi-Moto's deck and its initial stop at Duel Academy. Eyes lighting up in realizations as the answer to all his problems presented itself, Dmitry smirked as plans began to form in his mind. Of course, it's so simple. If copying the greatest duelists doesn't work, then I'll just become the greatest duelist. Mind set on going through with his, in most people's opinions, stupid and insane plan, Dmitry swiftly escaped from the raw dorm building and began heading towards the main academy building. Soon, the greatest deck in the world would be his, and he would finally become the greatest duelist in existence. Arriving at the main building shortly after, it wasn't hard to locate the room that had been chosen to house Yugi's deck, what with all the posters lining the walls. Despite housing the kind of game's deck, security for the room was extremely lax. No cameras, no standing guards, hell the room itself wasn't even locked. In fact, the only form of protection the deck had was the glass case it was being displayed in. This will be easier than I thought. Double-checking to make sure no one was around, Dmitry moved towards the display and with a deep breath, broke the glass with his elbow. After rubbing his now sore appendage to help soothe the ache, Dmitry reached in and retrieved his new deck. As he examined the cards, a surge of energy pulsed from the very deck he now held. Gasping as the power he felt wash over him and with his eyes alight with excitement and awe, the raw duelist began chuckling, a sound that got progressively deeper until it couldn't be recognized as his own. Finally, we are reunited my friends, Dmitry said, fondly observing the deck he held, and now, I shall reclaim my title as the king of games. Same time. Across the island, at the northernmost ridge, stood Naruto with his eyes closed in concentration. Slowly, a ring of chakra began to form around the blonde's feet, steadily increasing in density. Eyes snapping open, he clapped his hands together before crouching down and slamming them on the ground. A sealing matrix spread out from his palms, easily 5 feet in diameter. At the heart of the matrix was the kanji for barrier with 8 branches of symbols extending from the circle that housed the kanji. The newly formed seal glowed a soft blue for a few more moments before dying down, revealing that the seal had been burned and etched into the ground. Alright, now to make sure the sensing barrier works, muttered the blonde, before closing his eyes and clapping his hands together once again. The newly created seal flashed once before returning to normal, and though it wasn't seen, Naruto knew that the 3 other seals he had placed around the island had done the same. In his mind's eyes, a blacked-out version of the island began to form, and slowly a large spherical barrier formed around it, surrounding the island on all sides, and even from below. Good, everything is working correctly and the barrier is holding strong. With this in place, no one will be able to come and go from the island without me knowing. Taking out his PDA and pressing a few buttons, the serious face of Chancellor Shepard appeared on the small screen. The barrier is set up. I can sense everything that enters and leaves it. No one will be able to get on the island without our knowledge now. Excellent, and Naruto, thank you once again for agreeing to this. Titan's appearance on the island showed just how lax our security has become. It's not a problem, Chancellor, I would have taken steps to better protect the island with or without your permission. This way, it just makes things less complicated in the long run, replied the blonde with a shrug of his shoulders. After the incident with Harrington, when Shepard had approached Naruto to inform him of his punishment, he had also taken the chance to ask Naruto if he knew of anything that could help protect the academy. Naturally, the blonde knew more than a few things that could do the trick, but it immediately pointed out that many of those defenses had a nasty drawback for any trying to pass through them. Not exactly the best choice for an island-based school that relied on sea and air imports to provide supplies. However, those kinds of defenses were more equipped to a harsher and hostile environment, but there were still other options that were less extreme. Such as the barrier Naruto had just finished creating. It was a modified version of the sensing system jutsu that had been erected and maintained by Konoha's barrier team. The key difference between the original barrier and Naruto's version was that his did not require someone to constantly maintain and monitor it. Instead, it had been modified to work in a way similar to the barrier canopy method formation once wielded by Jiraiya. The 4 seals Naruto had applied at the cardinal points along the island perimeter anchored the barrier instead of Naruto himself being used as the anchor. Also, since it was connected to his chakra, he could feel everything that passed through the barrier in the back of his mind, therefore not interfering with his day-to-day life. Shepard smiled at his favorite student's choice of words, but couldn't help but agree. Still, you have my gratitude, Naruto. Now, I believe you've done enough for now, go get some rest, you've earned it. With one last smile and a polite nod, the Chancellor ended the video call, leaving Naruto to his own devices. Replacing his PDA in his pocket, the blonde duelist turned to begin the trek back to his accommodation when a pulse of relatively strong chakra reached his senses. Sighing to himself, he changed directions and began making his way towards the source of the chakra. "Well, so much for getting some rest," he mumbled as he leisurely made his way across the island. He could tell that the source of the chakra wasn't innately powerful and lacked any true human emotion that normally accompanied pulses of chakra. That left a few possibilities as to the source of the chakra, but none of them were worrying enough to pose any kind of immediate threat. Besides, he had spent a good portion of the night so far setting up the barrier, he deserved a few moments of peace, damn it. Following the chakra source eventually led Naruto to an outcropping of rocks sticking out of the ocean. Standing atop one of the rocks farthest from the island's edge, much to Naruto's surprise, was the familiar form of Ďmitry. What's he up to? At second glance, he noticed a few differences about Ďmitry, namely the blue scarf that was wrapped around his neck and the small flaring of his raw blazer. He also seemed to be looking through a deck of Duel Monsters cards, which Naruto noted was also the source of the chakra he had felt earlier. Silently unsealing his dual disc, having a strange feeling that he would need it soon, the blonde jumped off the cliff he was standing on and landed on one of the rocks across from Ďmitry, purposefully making noise to alert his fellow duelist to his presence. Ďmitry glanced over his shoulder before turning around fully upon realizing who had found him. This was his chance. If he could defeat Naruto, the top duelist in the freshman class, then it would prove to everyone just how great a duelist he really was. Eager to do just that, the copycat duelist greeted his soon-to-be opponent. "Naruto, what a pleasant surprise, I must say, your timing couldn't have been more perfect. I was just about to go and find someone to test my deck out against." Naruto raised an eyebrow at the change in Dimitri's voice. It was deeper and held an undertone of power in it, though thanks to his years as a shinobi, he could easily detect the effort Ďmitry had to put into keeping his voice that way. "What new deck would that be, Ďmitry?" he asked, crossing his arms to disguise pressing a secret switch on his dual disc. It was a hidden function he had requested be built into the disc. It allowed him to disguise his dual disc signal from all monitoring equipment, including the Academy's system. "This one," said the raw duelist, holding up the cards he had been looking through previously. Slotting them into his dual disc with an unnecessary flourish, Ďmitry deployed his disc, ready to begin the duel. "With this deck, I am invincible. No one, not even you, has a chance of defeating me." Naruto. 4,000 Ďmitry. 4,000. Sighing at the boisterous claim that he had heard far too many times to count, Naruto slotted his own deck and deployed his disc. Drawing their first hands, the two duelists shared a silent agreement as Naruto drew a 6 card and added it to his hand. "Since you're so certain of this new deck strength, I'll allow you to show me. I place 2 cards face down and end my turn." Chuckling slightly, Ďmitry drew his own card. "Is that all you can muster in the face of uncertainty? How unfortunate." Selecting 3 cards, he held them out for Naruto to see. "I, on the other hand, am not hampered by such things. With the magic of polymerization, I fuse 𝐫𝐸, the king of mythical beasts, and 𝐵𝐸 to form 𝐾𝐸RA, the flying mythical beast." A swirling black portal opened above Dimitri's side of the field, and from it descended a 2-headed beast. The beast possessed a lion's body, 2 silver wings on its back and tail tipped with a viper's head. 𝐾𝐸RA, the flying mythical beast. At 2100 Def 1800, 6 stars, Wind Attribute, Beast Fusion Effect 𝐫𝐸, the king of mythical beasts plus 𝐵𝐸. This monster is always treated as a phantom beast monster. When this card is destroyed, you can target 1 𝐵𝐸 or 𝐫𝐸, the king of mythical beasts in your graveyard, special summon that target. "Now 𝐾𝐸RA, show him your strength." Pulverizing pounce. With a roar, 𝐾𝐸RA leapt towards the defenseless blonde, claws poised to rip his life points apart. Said blonde didn't even flinch at the incoming attack, remaining calm as one of his face-down cards flipped up. A cloud of smoke covered Naruto's side of the field, preventing Ďmitry from seeing the results of his attack. The only indication he had was the telltale sound of a monster being destroyed. Though to his surprise, 𝐾𝐸RA did not return to his side of the field, instead 𝐵𝐸 appeared face up in defense mode. What happened? 𝐤𝐢𝐧𝐝 vigil trap happened, Naruto's voice sounded as the smoke cloud slowly began to dissipate. Once the last of the smoke had cleared, Ďmitry was treated to the side of a battle-ready 𝐫𝐻𝐻𝐻 hovering on his opponent's field. It may have taken away 500 of his attack points, but it was still enough to deal with your 𝐾𝐸RA. The 𝐤𝐢𝐳 vigil. Counter trap activate only when your opponent declares an attack. You may special summon 1 monster that has 𝐤𝐢𝐳 in its name from your hand and make that monster the new attack target. The summoned monster loses 500 attack points. 𝐫𝐻𝐻𝐻 2700-2200. Naruto. 4,000 Ďmitry. 3,900. Shaking himself to help rid his lingering shock, Ďmitry scowled at the blonde before slotting 2 of his 3 remaining cards into his disc. An impressive trap, but it is of little consequence. I place one card face down and activate Swords of Revealing Light. Now all monsters on your field are frozen for 3 turns. Swords of Revealing Light. Normal spell, flip all monsters your opponent controls face up. This card remains on the field for 3 of your opponent's turns. While this card is face up on the field, monsters your opponent controls cannot declare an attack. Don't be so sure, Dimitri. Things of little consequence have the largest impacts. Drawing his card, Naruto glanced at it before placing it in his center monster zone. I summon Chunin Shikamaru Nara in attack mode. In his typical swirl of shadows, the Nara heir appeared on the field with his hands in his pockets in a typical laid-back style. Scoffing at the seemingly pathetic move, the copycat duelist drew his next card. I must admit myself disappointed, Naruto. I had expected more of a challenge from someone of your caliber, but I guess in the face of real power, even the mightiest fall. Now I shall show you that power. Reveal face down card, Brain Control. Brain Control. Normal spell, pay 800 life points, then target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Take control of that target until the end phase. Naruto. 4000 Dimitri. 3100. But this, I take control of your Hokage. But do not worry, valiant warrior, you shall not have to do to battle with your former master. For I sacrifice you along with Baphomet to summon the Dark Magician. Arise, my old friend. The revered duel monster descended onto the field, arms crossed and fabled scepter in his grasp. Dimitri then placed his final card into his spell and trap card zone. Now to deal with your monster. I remember his ability to prevent an attack, but he cannot prevent this. Go, 1000 Knives. Dark Magician. At 2500 def 2100, 7 stars, dark attribute, spellcaster, the ultimate wizard in terms of attack and defense. 1000 Knives. Normal spell, if you control a Dark Magician. Target one monster your opponent controls, destroy that target. Countless glowing knives appeared around the Dark Magician, and with a wave of his hand, they descended on Shikamaru, destroying him in a shower of particles. Now my magician, attack him directly. Dark Magic Attack. Brandishing his scepter, the purple-clad spellcaster unleashed a powerful wave of energy at the defenseless blonde. Naruto. 1500 Dimitri. 3100. Now do you understand, Naruto? Even you, one of the most powerful duelists on the island, cannot stand up to me and this deck. So long as I have these cards, no one will mock my skill ever again. It seems like he's finally fallen prey to the power he took for himself. I guess it's time to make him see the truth. I will admit that the prowess you've shown so far is indeed impressive, especially with a deck that is not your own. But in your haste to demonstrate that prowess, you made a critical mistake. You no longer have any cards in your hand and no face downs to counter with. Your swords may prevent any of my monsters from attacking, but that is not the only way to win a duel. Glancing at the card he drew, Naruto nodded to himself. Perfect. Hopefully this will be enough to get through to Dimitri and show him the error of his ways. I'll set one card face down and end my turn. Consider your next move carefully, Dimitri, because one way or another, this duel ends this round. Frowning as he drew his card, Dimitri spared a glance at it before refocusing on his opponent. The matter-of-fact way Naruto said that one of them would lose this round was unsettling to say the least. He may have the most powerful monster on the field, but Naruto's face downs were something to be weary of. It didn't help that the card he just drew wouldn't be of any help in dealing with them. No, he thought forcefully, don't doubt in the power of your deck. If you do, you'll just end up losing again. There are no cards that are powerful enough to turn this duel around. He's just bluffing. I admire that you are willing to admit when a duel is lost, but bluffing is futile. I have watched all of your duels, and there are no cards in your deck that can help you. Now my magician, finish him off with Dark Magic Attack. Underestimating your opponent is a critical mistake, one that will cost you dearly. I activate my 2 face downs, Cunning of the Shinobi and Curse Chakra Transfer Technique. Cunning of the Shinobi. Counter trap, activate when your opponent declares an attack. Discard one card from your hand to negate the attack and inflict 1000 points of damage to your opponent's life points. Curse Chakra Transfer Technique. Counter trap, this card can only be activated when you are about to take more than 2000 points of damage to your life points as a result of battle. All damage that you would have received is negated and instead transferred to your opponent. Now by discarding one card from my hand, my 2 traps can end this duel. The beam of energy stopped just short of striking the blonde, only to be redirected back at Dimitri. Naruto. 1500 Dimitri. 600. And now my second trap takes effect, dealing another 1000 points of direct damage to you. What? Dimitri exclaimed, his voice returning to his natural one. Naruto. 1500 Dimitri. 0. That's impossible. Why, he cried as he fell to his knees, even with the greatest deck, I still lost. Why? Because all you do is copy people, Dimitri, came the surprisingly close voice of Naruto. Raising his head, the copycat duelist was met with the stern gaze of his fellow freshman. Before the Ra could say anything, Naruto continued, you can only get so far as a duelist if all you do is copy the decks and strategies of others. If you truly wish to become great, Dimitri, you must play to your own strengths, not the strengths of others. But copying is all I know how to do. And that in itself is your greatest strength, Dimitri. You have a skill that most duelists couldn't even hope to have, you are incredibly adaptable. Look at your past, Dimitri, do you really think just anyone could pick up a deck they have never used before and use it with half the proficiency that you have? No, they couldn't. They would have lost before the first hand was even drawn. Seeing the copycat about to say something, Naruto held up a hand to stop him. I know what you are going to say, Dimitri, and all I have to say is this, so what? Yes, you lost, but was it really such a bad thing to lose? One learns more in defeat than they do in victory, but it is only the strong that use what they have learned and turn that defeat into future victories. So I ask you, Dimitri, are you strong? Dimitri could only stare at the blonde, awed by the small speech. No one had ever said that to him, they only mocked him, ridiculing him for his inability to create a deck of his own. It had gotten to the point that he had started to believe it himself, that he really wasn't cut out to be a duelist. But with a few words, Naruto had crushed any doubt he had in his ability and ignited a fire within the raw duelist. Eyes hardening in determination, Dimitri got to his feet and met Naruto's sapphire gaze. I'm strong. Naruto smirked, clapping the teen on the shoulder. Good, use what you have learned, Dimitri, and become a duelist to be respected. But first, how about you return Yugi's deck before anybody notices it's missing? I guess you're right, the raw duelist said as he glanced at the deck in his duel disc, and Naruto, thank you. Shrugging, the blonde turned and began jumping back to shore, don't mention it. Besides, looking back over his shoulder, Naruto offered one last smirk before continuing on towards his home. You are carrying on the legacy of my sensei, it's only fitting that I pass on the teachings of the first copycat to the newest copycat. Much to Naruto's joy, the walk back to his home was a peaceful one. It gave him the opportunity to do something he rarely had the chance to do since arriving in this new time, bask in the beauty and tranquility of nature. As a sage, he knew what it meant to become one with nature, to accept it for how it was and live in harmony with it. That is what saddened him most about this time, the people had forgotten living in harmony with nature, instead choosing to try and control it by building extravagant and overly large cities. Shaking his head to rid himself of those melancholy thoughts, Naruto continued on his way, once more allowing the rhythmic sounds of nature to wash over him, soothing his tired mind. He had just made it to the clearing where his home stood when he felt a familiar presence appear beside him. You were gone longer than I expected you to be. Something happened. I ran into a few other spirits who served the same master as Jinzo, but none of them were near as powerful as he was. If Jinzo was a mere scout, then these guys were cannon fodder. That may be, but it also means that our enemy has a large enough force that they can freely send out multiple troops without fear of it affecting their overall military strength. Massaging his temple, Naruto continued on into his home with his mother's spirit following after him. Things aren't looking too well for us at the moment. Our enemy has already amassed his forces and is on the move, well, we have almost no way of counteracting them and next to no idea what they're planning. We're pretty much defenseless and flying blind. Things may seem bleak, Naruto-kun, but we're not totally defenseless. Seeing her son's questioning look, Kushina explained, while I was searching for the doorways, I learned that they are held open by chakra. I also discovered that they can only contain a certain amount of chakra before they become destabilized and collapse in on themselves. So you mean that with a powerful enough chakra source, we can forcibly close the doorways? Exactly, she said with a smirk, and that was the main reason I was gone so long. I was using my power to collapse as many gates as possible. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough power to destroy all of them, but one of your shadow clones should be enough to take care of the ones I couldn't. However, there are a few that even you won't be able to destabilize. The blonde's eyes widened at that piece of information. He was widely recognized by many as one of the most powerful shinobi of the day in terms of sheer chakra alone. That his mother, another recognized chakra powerhouse, claimed that even he wouldn't be able to force some of the doorways closed was a chilling thought. It's not that you don't have the chakra necessary, Naruto-kun, it's the structure of the doorways themselves that would prevent you from closing them. Unlike all the others that I found, which are merely held open by ambient chakra, these are self-sustaining. They absorb the ambient chakra around them and actually become more stable in proportion to the amount they take in. So in other words, we need to drain or remove entirely the chakra inside them to close them, said Naruto, placing a scroll on his living room table and unraveling it to reveal a map of the globe. Exactly how many are there and where are they located? There are 3 in total, one at the Duelist Kingdom, another is above Domino City, and the third is here at Duel Academy. Kushina listed off as Naruto marked the appropriate locations on the map. All its sites where large amounts of chakra have been exuded in duels. Knowing that, we should be able to accurately predict where any future doors may open and with any luck seal them before they can be used. Did you tell Pegasus about the one at Duelist Kingdom? Kushina nodded. I told him. He agreed to stay in his penthouse at Industrial Illusions HQ until we found a way to seal the door. All that's left is coming up with a way to go about it. Yeah, mumbled the blonde, and therein lies the problem. There are not many things that are capable of extracting such large amounts of chakra. Any ideas? Maybe, but nothing for certain. Alright, Naruto said as he rolled up the map, I guess all we can do now is work on a way to close those doors. Are they stable enough for anything to pass through at this point? No, I tried to enter them, and they didn't seem capable of allowing safe passage yet. If I had to wager a guess, it would take about another year before they would be safe enough to pass through. Nodding, Naruto got up and started heading towards his room. Good, then we have some time to prepare ourselves. For now though, I need to rest. Tonight has been a long and tiring one. Good night Kaa-chan, I'll see you in the morning. Good night Naruto-kun, sweet dreams. Once she was certain he was out of sight and safely in bed, Kushina floated outside and double-checked her surroundings to make sure no one who could see her was around. Things are getting serious, and Naruto is not the type to just sit back and not do anything. He may be powerful, and his friends may be advancing in their training, but we can't face the coming storm with a handful people. We need an army on our side. I think it's time I spoke with the others, the time for hiding is almost over. The sounds of flesh smacking against flesh filled the air around Naruto's home. Said blonde stood atop the creek surface, supervising his friends as they continued their training. Zane, Bastion, and Cirrus were locked in a three-way spar, each using the martial arts, or taijutsu as Naruto called it, he had taught them over the past couple of weeks. Despite his smaller stature, Cirrus was easily matching his brother and Bastion blow for blow, using his speed to his advantage. 𝐸 had declined learning any of the taijutsu, knowing that his strengths did not lie on the battlefield. Naruto had understood and had set the Cola duelist on a different kind of training. He was at the creek's edge, meditating and trying to transfer his chakra into his deck. Even with his smaller reserves of chakra, he still possessed enough to give the spirits of his cards physical form, if only for a short time. That was why he was pumping chakra into his deck, to strengthen them and make it easier to summon them in physical form. Across the water's surface, Alexis, Mindy and Jasmine were going through some physical exercises while preventing themselves from sinking into the water. The three of them may have been in great shape, but they lacked the physical strength and stamina of a Kunoichi to complete the next step of their training. Also, by having them do the exercises on the water, it helped to temper and strengthen their chakra and their control over it. That extra control and power would go a long way with the style or fighting Naruto planned on teaching the three. Before all that though, Naruto had something else in mind for everyone to learn. That's enough for now, take a few minutes to get some water and rest. After that, I have a surprise for everyone. With their interests piqued, the 7 duelists did as instructed. A few minutes later found the group of 8 seated in a circle with all eyes on Naruto. First, let me say that I am proud of the progress you each have made so far. We may have only trained together for a short time, but I can already see that each of you will become great in the future. Now, because of everyone's outstanding progress, I have decided you all deserve a reward. What kind of reward, Naruto? Asked Cirrus, unable to contain his excitement at a gift from the blonde. Something that can only be achieved by those who have unlocked their chakra and possess a powerful bond with their cards. I will teach you how to unleash the spirits residing in your decks. Wait, you mean like see the dual spirits in our decks? Like what Yu-Gi-Oh can do? Precisely 𝐸, everyone's eyes, with the exception of Alexis, widened. In the dueling world, those who could see and communicate with the spirits of their cards always rose to be extraordinary duelists. Let's begin. To unleash your card spirits, you must delve deep within yourself and find the bond that links you to your deck. Follow that bond to its source and reach out to the spirits within. Once you feel them respond, use your chakra to complete the bond and free them from the restraints of their cards. Eager to meet their spirit companions, everyone quickly sank into meditation, with the exception of our 2 favorite blondes. As everyone meditated, Naruto and Alexis decided to have a mock duel while they waited. So who do you think will be the first to connect with their spirit companions? Asked Alexis as she studied her hand. 𝐸, Naruto said without hesitation, with the training he's been doing, the bond between him and his cards is stronger than everyone else's. It won't take long for him to complete the bond and release his deck spirits. No sooner had the words left his mouth than did they feel the ground shake slightly. Glancing over towards their rot-un friend, the 2 blondes were greeted with the sight of 𝐸 surrounded by 3 beast-type monster spirits. 𝐫𝐞ola and 𝐫𝐴kangaroo were jumping around a wide-eyed 𝐸 in glee, while the massive form of 𝐵𝐞𝐞ola sat serenely behind the astonished senior Slifer. Well damn, that was faster than I thought. So chum, how's it feel to finally meet your spirit companions? It's kind of surreal, you know. I mean, you've told us all about them, but actually meeting the spirits of my own cards is like, totally licious. Chuckling, Naruto nodded in agreement. Yeah, hearing about something and experiencing it on your own are two completely different things. Get to know your new spirit friends chum, I have a feeling it will take the others considerably longer to link with their spirit companions. Turning back to Alexis, he flashed a smirk. Now, I believe it was my turn, wasn't it? But Zane opened his eyes to a wide expanse that seemed to have no end to it. Nothing could be discerned from the rest, not even the seemingly solid surface he stood on. This must be my core. I guess Naruto wasn't kidding when he said that a person's core is the purest part of who they are, untouched and untainted by the outside world. As he glanced around, the appearance of a pulsing blue sphere caught the senior obelisk's attention, and with it, an overbearing pressure on his being. And that must be my chakra. Man, Naruto told us that the chakra inside our cores would be more potent than the chakra we utilize outside, but I didn't think it would be this overwhelming. Slowly though, the pressure began to lessen until all that was left was a slight tingling on the brunette's skin. Finally able to move around freely again, the eldest 𝐫𝐸 brother began to move about the wide expanse that was his core. It wasn't long before he found something that piqued his curiosity, a stream of chakra that branched off from his core and moved across the expanse. Moving over to the stream of chakra, Zane furrowed his brow as he placed his hand on the surface of the chakra. Zane, an unknown voice sounded in his mind, startling the normally calm duelist. Hear us Zane, free us. Could that be the voice of my dual spirit? Zane wondered as he looked off in the direction the stream of chakra flowed. Guess there's only one way to find out with that. He took off, running alongside the stream of chakra towards the mysterious voice that called to him. For an indiscernible amount of time he ran, following his chakra and the voice that became stronger as time passed. Zane, the voice sounded again, though there was something different about it. It no longer sounded like a singular voice, now it seemed as if it were multiple voices speaking as one. Yes Zane, the three of us call to you, for only you can make us one. Make you one? What do you mean? Come to us Zane, and you will know. With that, the voices fell silent. Determined to find his answer, the senior obelisk continued on his way. It was not long after that Zane came upon a wondrous sight. A pair of glowing golden gates towered over him, radiating with an ethereal light. Beyond the bars of the gate, three shadowed serpentine figures rose up, and three pairs of shining yellow eyes gazed down on the brunette. Finally, you have come Zane. Who are you? He asked as he walked closer to the gates. You know who we are Zane, we have been with you for as long as you have dueled. Cyber Dragon, the words were but a whisper, yet they carried across the expanse with ease. Yes Zane, cooed the three dragons, now please, free us from this cage, so that we may grant you our true power. How do I free you? Your chakra Zane, no matter how imposing it may feel, your chakra is still yours, and it will bend to your will. The chakra beside you is what keeps this gate sealed. You must reverse the flow so that it will open the gate and allow us to fully merge our spirits with your deck. Zane nodded and turned to face the stream of chakra holding the gate closed. Taking a steadying breath, he reached out and placed both hands on the surface of the stream. Instantly, he felt a pulse of pure unchained power surge through him, nearly launching him across the endless expanse. Through sheer strength of will, he fought against the power trying to push him away. Fight it Zane. Do not let it overwhelm you. Remember, it is still your chakra, you can control it. I won't let this power get the better of me. Eyes closing in focus, Zane gritted his teeth as he felt the power continue to oppose him. This is my chakra. I control it. A second surge of power ripped through Zane's core, this time emanating from Zane himself. His eyes snapped open, revealing they were now glowing a deep, vibrant blue. A stream of chakra pulsed once more before receding from the gate and flowing into Zane. Once the last of the chakra had returned to Zane's body, the gates holding the three cyber dragons back opened, freeing the mighty beasts. You did it Zane. They said in unison once again as they wrapped themselves around the cyber duelist. You did it. Finally we can give you our full strength and truly fight alongside you. Before the bewildered duelist had a chance to react, the three spirits faded from sight. Zane shook his head to get over the very exuberant way the three dragons had shown their affection for him. And I thought Cirrus was excitable, he mumbled, though a small smile could be seen on his face. Looking down at his hands, Zane's smile turned into a frown as he concentrated. Chakra erupted from his hands, blazing with the same deep blue hue as his eyes had taken on moments before. I'm not sure what it is, but my chakra feels stronger than before. Could it be because the bond with my dual spirits is now complete? I'll have to ask Naruto about this. Allowing his chakra to dissipate, Zane prepared to return to the outside world, only to freeze as more voices reached his ears. Zane, the ominous voice caused the hairs of the back of said obelisk neck to stand on end. But for reasons he couldn't fathom, the chakra within him seemed to sing when the voice spoke. "Who's there?" the Blunette demanded as he looked around for the source of the voice, eyes hardening into pits of ice. "Show yourself, you coward." "We are here, 𝐤𝐢𝐴." Spinning around, the senior obelisk was faced with the dark confines that had housed the cyber dragons. "Please, you must free us from the darkness. Free us so that we may know true power alongside you." "Sorry, but I don't take offers from those who hide in shadows. Now show yourself." "We cannot, 𝐤𝐴. The darkness prevents us from revealing ourselves to you. But we are no strangers to you, 𝐤𝐴. You have merely forgotten who we are. Look into your past and remember." Furrowing his brow, 𝐤𝐴 began thinking back over everything he had done in his life that was related to dueling. A few moments passed before his eyes widened in shock as memories of his early duel training surfaced. "It can't be, 𝐤𝐴 began, taking an involuntary step back as the reality of the situation sank in. "Yes, 𝐤𝐴, remember. Remember all those years ago, it was we who called to you. But you were not ready then, your power had yet to awaken. Now the time has finally come, you are ready to receive our power and achieve your true potential." From within the inky blackness of the cage came a gust of wind that forced 𝐤𝐴 to brace himself, lest he be blown away. "Go, 𝐤𝐴. Find us and free us from our prison. Unleash our power and take it as your own." Unable to stand against the increasing force of the wind, 𝐤𝐴 felt himself being blown across the expanse, only to fade from sight moments later. Jolting awake, 𝐤𝐴 found himself back in the real world. Around him, his friends were conversing with their now visible dual spirits. Bastion sat with Jasmine, Water Dragon and Fire Dragon coiled around them, while the three Harpy Lady Sisters flew overhead. Upon closer inspection, he could see the chibi form of Harpy's pet baby dragon, wrapped in the Redeed's arms. Cirrus looked awed at the sight of his spirits, while said spirits were running about, enjoying their new freedom. "𝐤𝐴?" asked Mindy to the elder Truesdale's right, "You okay? You look a little pale." "I'm fine, Mindy," he replied, "releasing my dual spirits was more taxing than I expected is all." Before she could say anything else, rhythmic beeping cut through the clearing. Everyone turned towards the sound, while 𝐤𝐴 stood up and walked over to Naruto's home. Digging through the pile of bags, 𝐤𝐴 pulled out his PDA and read over the new message. "I have to go. Chancellor Shepard has requested that I be present for a mandatory faculty meeting. I'll see you all later." Cirrus walked up to Mindy as his older brother left the clearing. "Don't worry, Mindy, 𝐤𝐴's always been that way. Give him a day or two and he'll be back to his usual self." "Thanks, Cirrus," said the Blackhead. "I just wish 𝐤𝐴 would open up to us a little more. With all the time we've been spending together, you'd think he'd trust us enough to tell us when something's wrong." "Leave it be, Mindy," called Naruto, not having moved from his spot next to Alexis. Like Cirrus said, 𝐤𝐴 isn't the type to burden others with his problems needlessly. But he also knows the limits of what he is capable of on his own. If he truly needs our help, he knows that he need only ask, and it will be given. Though she was reluctant to simply let things be, Mindy relented and nodded her acceptance. "Alright, now. Cirrus. Hey Cirrus, where are you?" An unknown voice echoed from somewhere in the forest. Everyone turned to the younger Truesdale for an explanation. "Friend of yours, Cirrus?" inquired Bastion. It took the fairer-haired Blunette a minute to respond, trying to put a name to the voice. "It sounds like mine and Chum's new roommate Blair." "Blair?" "Yeah, Blair Flanagan, he just transferred in today. Apparently, he aced his exams and passed his entrance duel with flying colors. Banner has him slated for promotion to raw yellow within the week." Said transfer student chose that moment to stumble out of the brush on the group's right. He was garbed in the standard Slifer uniform, though his pants were looser fitting and gave a ballooning effect just above his shoes. A large hat, nearly twice the size of Blair's head, covered his hair from view. The young teen was also rather short in stature, being an inch or two shorter than Cirrus. What stood out most about him were his surprisingly soft, feminine facial features. Shaking a few leaves and twigs from his person, the new arrival looked up and finally took notice of the group. "There you are, Cirrus. I've been looking all over for you." "For me? Why is that, Blair?" "Why? Don't you remember? You promised to introduce me to your brother once classes were finished," said Blair exasperatedly. "Now come on, let's go." Silence descended over the group, all of them overwhelmed by the emotion from the young boy. It almost seemed borderline hysteric. Like not meeting 𝐤𝐴 was the worst possible thing imaginable. When Cirrus didn't immediately respond, Blair ran over and grabbed him by the arm. "Let's go, Cirrus. You promised to introduce me, now you're going to introduce me." "I'm afraid that's impossible at the moment," said Naruto, coming to his friend's aid. "𝐤𝐴 was just called away for an important faculty meeting. He won't be available for a while." Blair's face fell faster than a stone in water, and her hold on Cirrus went slack, freeing the Slifer. "Oh," Blair mumbled, "fine. But you better introduce us as soon as 𝐤𝐴's finished with that meeting, Cirrus. With that, the young transfer student left the clearing, leaving a flustered and confused group in his wake. Bastion coughed into his hand. "Well," he began, "that was interesting." "That's putting it mildly," Jasmine said. "What was with that guy anyway? It seemed like he was completely obsessed with your brother Cirrus." "I'm pretty sure he is. As soon as he learned Zane was my brother, he wouldn't leave me alone until I agreed to introduce him," said Cirrus as he retook his seat. "It seems Zane has a fan. A rather obsessed one if you ask me," Bastion said as he crossed his arms. While everyone was talking about Blair, Naruto's brow was furrowed in concentration. Something's not right about Blair. The way he acted and the way his emotions shifted so quickly aren't normal, even for an obsessed fanboy. If I didn't know any better, I'd say Blair Flanagan was more girl than boy. Naruto was apparently not the only one who was suspicious of Blair. Alexis had her eyes narrowed slightly and her lips thinned, her tell when she was trying to figure out something that didn't make sense. Naruto leaned over and whispered, "I take it you also found something off about our new friend." "Yeah," his emotions seemed to be all over the place. "I've met some really obsessed fanboys before, but they were never that bad. In fact, Blair seemed to behave more like a girl than a boy." Naruto finished, "Yeah, I was thinking the same thing." "Why though?" She pondered, "If we're right and Blair really is a girl, why would she bother putting on this charade? It's not like the academy has anything against girls becoming students. There's only one way to find out, we need to have a little chat with Blair Flanagan." Rising to his feet drew the rest's attention to the blonde. "That's enough for today, guys. We'll meet up later for some duel training. Now though, Alexis and I have some business to attend to, we'll see you guys later." Offering a hand to his fellow blonde, Naruto helped Alexis to her feet. With one last wave goodbye, the two headed out in the same direction Blair had gone. "I wonder what they have to do," said Cirrus. Jasmine and Mindy shared a look before breaking out into a fit of giggles. "Isn't it obvious?" the Redeed asked. "They just wanted to be alone so they could have a private moment." The three males present widened their eyes at that possibility. It hadn't even crossed their minds that Naruto and Alexis could potentially be an item. Academy building faculty room. "Welcome everyone," said Shepard, seated at the head of the elongated circular table. "Now then, straight to business, as you are all aware, the annual school duel with North Academy is fast approaching. Therefore, I feel we should begin discussion about who shall be our representative this year. Are there any nominations?" "Nominations?" questioned Crowler, sitting opposite Shepard. "Forgive me, Chancellor, but are you out of your mind? The school duel is the second biggest match of the year. Not to mention the pride of Duel Academy is on the line as well. I feel there is very little discussion to be had. Zane is by far our best," he said, gesturing to the brunette standing by the door on Shepard's right. "Clearly he should be our representative, as he was last year." Surprising, as he rarely spoke at these meetings, Banner chimed in. "I agree that Zane is our top duelist and would no doubt secure a victory for Duel Academy, however I have heard a rumor going around." "What did this rumor say, Professor Banner?" asked Miss Fontaine. "I have heard that North Academy has opted to select a first-year student as their representative this year." "A freshman? Why on earth would they choose a freshman to represent them in the school duel?" Crowler shrieked, seemingly scandalized at the mere thought of a freshman in such an illustrious event. "That's right," Shepard nodded. "Foster messaged me yesterday and informed me of his decision. So in the spirit of fairness, we shall choose one of our own freshmen to compete. Any nominations?" "Naruto Namikaze," said Zane in that borderline monotonous voice of his. "He is one of the best in the freshman class. He will do us proud if given the chance." "You can't be serious." Now Crowler was almost hysteric, "that menace in the school duel." "Absolutely not. Have you forgotten what he did to Mr. Rosewood? The poor lad hasn't even recovered yet." The mode in the room changed instantly. A cold silence permeating the space within the four walls. "No," spoke Zane, his voice colder than ice, "I haven't forgotten. But it seems you have, Dr. Crowler." The man's name was spat with an undercurrent of loathing. "Or did you forget who I sided, and still side with, over that matter?" The blood drained quickly from the obelisk headmaster's face. It seemed that particular detail had slipped his mind. Backtracking and hoping to steer the conversation away from such volatile ground, Crowler turned to Chancellor Shepard. "If you insist on honoring the spirit of fairness, then might I suggest Bastion Missa would be our rep? He has the highest marked grades out of the entire freshman class. Not to mention he is a prodigious and well-rounded duelist. I have even heard that he carries multiple decks with him at any given time." It appeared that was enough to sway everyone's thoughts back to the matter at hand. All except Zane, who still had his intense gaze leveled on the blonde man. Though, that didn't stop him from analyzing Crowler's proposition with a critical eye. It may have been done in the spur of the moment, but it was a sound argument. Bastion did in fact have the highest marked grades in his class, and he was an exceptional duelist. The kind of perfect combination many of the teachers looked for. That made Bastion a very appealing candidate in the eyes of the staff. What the teachers were not likely to see, however, was what Crowler hoped to potentially occur. By nominating Bastion in opposition to Zane's nomination of Naruto, it would no doubt lead to the only way the school settled debates. With a duel. Maybe Zane had just been spending too much time around Naruto and had been influenced by the blonde's tendency to look at every possible outcome of a situation, no matter how ludicrous some of them were. But it seemed to him that Crowler was hoping to drive a wedge between Naruto and Bastion by pitting them against one another in such a high-profile setting. Too bad for Crowler, that was about as likely as Seto Kaiba willingly admitting that Yugimoto was better than he was at dueling. Refocusing on the meeting, Zane found all of the staff murmuring to each other about which of the two boys would be better suited for the task. Shepard was leaned back in his seat, eyes closed, no doubt mulling over the same question as everyone else. "Very well," the man said suddenly, silencing the room. "Seeing as both nominations are more than qualified, we will settle this matter with a duel. Tomorrow evening, Naruto and Bastion will duel to decide which shall represent us in the school duel." "Zane," he said, turning to address his top student, "I understand that you are quite close with both Naruto and Bastion, so I will leave informing them of this decision to you." Zane bowed his head slightly, "Yes, Chancellor. I'll inform them before the day is over." "Good," Shepard said with nod. "Then I call this meeting to a close. I expect to see all of you at the duel tomorrow." Obelisk Blue Boys dorm. Blair knelt behind a line of bushes outside of the Obelisk dorm, watching the comings and goings of the dorm's residents. Periodically, she would glance at balcony on the third floor, planning out the best way to access it. Fortunately for her, a branch from one of the taller trees hung almost directly over the balcony. That would be her way in, she decided. Now all that was left was ensuring she got in unnoticed and making sure that she wouldn't be disturbed. Unbeknownst to the young teen, her plans of going unnoticed had already failed. Several yards behind her, perched on a high-up branch, were Naruto and Alexis. The two blondes had easily found Blair after leaving their friends and had followed her all the way out to the dorm. "What is she planning?" mumbled Alexis, making sure to keep her voice low so as not to alert Blair. "Judging from the way she's been eyeing that balcony and tree, I'd say she's looking to sneak into the dorm," Naruto said. "As foolhardy as it is, I have to give her some credit. She knows what she's doing." "Maybe, but that still doesn't explain why she'd risk sneaking into the Obelisk dorm." "Take a closer look at the balcony, Alexis." "There's your answer," said Naruto cryptically. Alexis shot him a mock sideways glare. It always annoyed her when he knew something she didn't and wouldn't just come out and say it. But she knew that he did it for her benefit. She wouldn't learn to see things on her own if he always gave her the answers. Refocusing on the balcony, she racked her brain trying to find anything that was familiar about it. After a few minutes of silent contemplation, the answer hit her like a ton of bricks. "That's Zane's room," she said in a whispered shout, looking to Naruto for confirmation. "That's right," he said, "it seems that Blair's obsession with Zane is stronger than we originally thought. If she's willing to take this kind of risk, who knows what else she might try in the future. What do you suggest we do then? Let's hang back and see what exactly she wants to accomplish with this little stunt. Then we'll move in and confront her." It was several more minutes before Blair finally made her move. Silently making her way over to the tree she had been eyeing, the young teen quickly scaled it. Being mindful of her balance, she slowly walked out along the branch that hung above Zane's balcony and dropped onto the stone structure. At the same time, Naruto, with Alexis on his back, moved closer to the tree line so that they could better observe Blair. What they saw was certainly not what they were expecting. Blair had found Zane's spare deck and was holding the cards close to her chest, like they were the most precious things in the world. "Well," Naruto said, "there's something you don't see every day. Blair's not obsessed with Zane. She's in love with him," said Alexis, unable to keep her surprise hidden. Naruto shook his head. "I'm afraid that's where you're wrong, Alexis. True, it may seem like Blair is in love with Zane, but that is only because she has convinced herself that that is what it is." "What do you mean, Naruto-kun?" "I mean that Blair does not truly love Zane. At least not in the way you're thinking." When Alexis just kept looking at him, Naruto elaborated, "Blair likely greatly admires Zane's, and probably has for a while. She's still young, and likely doesn't understand what it truly means to love someone. So it's possible that she has mistaken that admiration for love and has convinced herself that Zane must love her back. Sadly, it's something that is rather common in fangirls." "You sound like you've had experience with this before," Alexis pointed out. "Did you have fangirls like that?" she asked. Naruto shook his head. "No, I didn't, but a very dear friend of mine, someone I considered a brother, did. I was also friends with one of his fangirls, so I got to see both sides of this kind of ordeal. So believe me when I say that if this continues, Blair will only end up hurting herself in the long run." Though he covered it up well, Alexis could see the hurt her fellow blonde felt as he talked about his two friends. Deciding not to pry, she tried to get his mind off of his friends and back on the situation at hand. Then what should we do? We can't let Blair keep this up if all it's going to do is hurt her. We have to make her realize that she doesn't really love Zane, or at the very least, convince her that a reason for coming to Duel Academy is wrong. The second option may not be the best choice, but it would at least be a step in the right direction. It was at that point that Blair emerged from Zane's room and used the same tree to escape before quickly making her way into the forest. Let's go, Alexis. Best to do this without drawing any unnecessary attention. With Alexis once again on his back, Naruto followed after Blair, easily keeping up with her. This is going to be a sensitive conversation, so it would probably be best if you started things off. Blair might take it better if another woman broaches the subject. What about you? I'll hang back and watch. If it looks like you're getting through to her, I won't intervene. But if she isn't responsive to you, I'll step in and try a different approach. As he said this, Naruto had put on a burst of speed, slightly startling Alexis as they overtook Blair. Touching down several yards ahead of their target, Naruto set Alexis down. Offering her an encouraging smile, he vanished back into the tree line, leaving Alexis to her task. Taking a breath to steady herself, she began walking to intercept Blair, safe in the knowledge that Naruto was near. It wasn't long after that Blair appeared through the trees, stopping when she noticed Alexis. "Oh, hey Blair," began Alexis, putting on a kind smile, "what are you doing all the way out here?" I was just," she fumbled over her words, trying to come up with a believable excuse. She was so certain that she wouldn't be caught, least of all by the Queen of Obelisk Blue, that she hadn't bothered preparing a story in advance. Movement behind Blair caught Alexis's attention. Shifting her gaze upward slightly, she spotted Naruto kneeling on branch a few feet behind Blair. When she met his gaze, he gave her a quick nod. Nodding ever so slightly back to show she understood, Alexis refocused on Blair, who had mumbled some half-assed excuse about being lost. "I'm sorry Blair, it can be a little confusing finding your way around these woods. But don't worry, you'll get used to it after a while," she said. "Actually, I'm glad I ran into you, there was something I wanted to tell you." Blair's confusion was plain to see. "Really? What is it?" "Well, Zane's like a big brother to me, and since we're both obelisks, I could introduce you to him sooner than Cirrus. That is, if you wanted, of course." From his place in the trees, Naruto smirked at Alexis's plan. "It never ceases to amaze me how clever she is. If this works, Blair will end up giving herself away before she even realizes it." Blair's eyes widened at the offer, before she nodded quickly. "Really? You would? That's great. Thank you so much, Alexis," said Blonde's eyes narrowed slightly as Blair's voice slipped towards the end. The tone was not as deep, instead it was softer and very noticeably feminine. Although it didn't look like the young girl had noticed her slip up as she started talking about how excited she was to finally meet Zane. Taking advantage of that, Alexis broached the subject she came here for. "Is something wrong with your voice, Blair?" she suddenly asked, stopping the younger girl's rant instantly. Blair's eyes widened again, but this time, they reflected fear. "I don't," clearing her throat to buy herself a few precious seconds, she came up with a split-second excuse. "My throat's just been bothering me lately, I think I might have caught something on the trip over." "Well, we can't have that now, can we?" Alexis had her kind smile still in place as she walked up to the disguised girl and put a hand on her shoulder. "Come on, I'll go with you to see Miss Fontaine. She'll have something that should fix you right up. Besides," she continued, feeling Blair's body tense, "you don't want to meet Zane while you're sick, do you?" Whatever protest Blair might have had was quickly shot down by that. She knew that if she tried to come up with some excuse to not go to the school nurse, it would make her look very suspicious. If she claimed that she was fine, then Alexis would no doubt question her about her voice again, and that was something she couldn't afford. But also, if she tried to dissuade the blonde from taking her to the nurse, Alexis would no doubt insist that it was no trouble, leaving any further protest seeming very hollow. With no other options available, Blair let herself be led through the forest by the older teen. They traveled in silence for a few minutes, until finally, Alexis decided it was time to put an end to the younger girl's charade. "So Blair," she said, noticing the slight flinch from the girl next to her, "why do you want to meet Zane so badly?" "Because began Blair, only to stop short, realizing what she was about to say. Thinking on the fly again, she tried to make up some kind of believable reason. "Because I look up to him," she said quickly. "I saw him compete in the national tournament once a few years back, and ever since, I've always wanted to be like him." Alexis's eyes narrowed ever so slightly at Blair catching her slip, but she did well to hide her irritation. It seemed Blair was much more adept at thinking on her feet and coming up with rather believable lies than she first thought. That meant that catching her in a lie was going to be even more difficult, and she was running out of time. She could already see the spires of the academy building over the treetops. Well, if subtlety isn't working, I guess it's time for a more direct approach, Alexis thought, as she flicked her hair over her shoulder, hoping Naruto would get her unspoken message. A blur shooting through the trees on her right showed that he had. She half expected to see her fellow blonde waiting some distance ahead of them, ready to confront Blair. What she wasn't expecting was for a powerful wind to come out of nowhere and hit Blair and herself head-on. Bringing her arms up to brace against the wind, Alexis barely heard Blair's shriek of surprise over the wind. Glancing up through squinted eyes, she noticed a blonde-streaked blur rush past Blair, knocking the oversized hat off her head and allowing the younger girl's long hair to fall freely down her back. Almost as quickly as it came, the wind was gone, leaving silence in its wake. "You know Blair," Naruto's unmistakable voice sounded through the clearing. The two girls whipped around to see Naruto leaning against a tree, a deck fanned out in front of him. "You can tell a lot about a person from their deck, but I don't need your deck to see that you've been lying to everyone." Folding the fanned out cards back into a deck, the blonde turned his hard gaze on Blair. "The only thing I can't figure out though, is why." Blair was unnerved by the intense sapphire eyes that seemed to look into her very soul. Unable to meet the blonde's gaze any longer and terrified at being found out, she turned and attempted to make a run for it, only for a firm hand on her shoulder to stop her short. "Blair," Naruto's voice had gained a hard edge to it, ridding the young girl of any thoughts of escape. "I won't ask again, now please, tell us what this charade is all about. Or we'll be forced to bring this up with the Chancellor." "No." The brunette shouted, "Alright, I'll tell you." Casting her eyes down on the ground and knowing that she had no other choice, Blair began her explanation. "I came to Duel Academy to get closer to my true love." "You mean Zane," said Naruto. "Yeah," she mumbled with a blush. "Zane. What I told Alexis was true, I did get to see him compete in the national tournament a few years ago. During the final round, Zane had been backed into a corner by his opponent. If he didn't draw the right card, he would lose. But then, just before he drew his card, his eyes met mine. I couldn't hear him, but I read his lips. He said, 'This one is for you.'" Blair's eyes had gained a faraway look to them, and her expression had shifted to a dreamy one. "I knew right then and there, we were meant to be together. So when I learned Zane had come to Duel Academy, I wanted to sign up immediately, but I was too young then, and they rejected my application. So I trained every day, honing my dueling skills so that when I finally came to Duel Academy, I could join Obelisk Blue and be with Zane. But when I found out I'd have to start in the Slifer dorm, I knew I wouldn't get many chances to be near him, especially with the dorm policy. So I disguised myself as a boy to make it easier to get into the Obelisk dorm and meet him." Refocusing on the blonde-haired teen standing in front of her, Blair met his gaze with a glare. "So there, now you know why I did everything. Go ahead and report me to the Chancellor, but no matter what you do, you won't keep me from Zane. We're destined to be together." Silence answered her proclamation. Alexis was looking at Blair with raised eyebrows, honestly surprised at how far the girl would go for her supposed true love. Naruto merely continued to meet the girl's glare with his own blank stare. But then he did something neither girl expected. He chuckled. "Well, I got to say, I've heard some crazy stories before, but yours takes the cake in the stupidity department. I mean really, disguising yourself as a boy to get close to and attract the attention of another boy. That plan would only ever work if the other guy was gay, and I'm pretty sure Zane doesn't swing that way." "No, I don't." The three duelists turned to see Zane stepping out from behind a tree. Blair immediately felt a blush creep onto her cheeks, and her heart began to beat in her ears. "Zane, you're here," she whispered, though the other three present easily heard it. With the presence of her true love, Blair felt her confidence rise. Turning to the two blondes who had accosted her, a victorious smirk spread across her lips. "Now do you see? We are destined to be together. Zane knew you were harassing me, so he came to my rescue." "That's enough, Blair," said Zane as he crossed his arms and narrowed his eyes at the young teen. The harshness of her true love's voice caught Blair flat-footed, and she stumbled in shock for a moment. "What? Zane, I..." said Blair sighed, as he knew this was going to be painful for the young teen, but it had to be done. "Blair, as flattered as I am by your affections, the fact remains that I just don't feel the same about you." The brunette had tears forming in the corner of eyes now. "Besides, I don't believe that anyone is destined to be together. Love is not something that can be predetermined, you must work for it with all your heart." "Wow, Zane," said Alexis, a smirk adorning her face, "never thought I'd hear something like that from you." Naruto sported a matching smirk. "The more stoic the surface, the more caring the heart is beneath. You're just a big softy inside, aren't you, Zane?" Zane smirked beside himself, though he had to shake his head at the two blondes teasing. But Blair's soft voice brought everyone's attention back to her. "How can you not feel the same way? All I've ever wanted was for us to fall in love and live happily ever after." That's the whole reason I've trained so hard to get here, so that we could be together. What am I supposed to do now? She cried, tears freely flowing down her cheeks. Despite knowing that what they had done was for the best, it didn't lessen the pang of guilt they all felt. Blair looked to be on the verge of an emotional break, her eyes starting to look bloodshot from how hard she was crying. Alexis moved over to the poor girl and knelt down to wrap her in a hug. Whispering soothing words to the distraught girl, the Queen of Obelisk Blue looked up to the two males, silently asking what they should do now. Naruto looked pensive, obviously trying to figure that out himself. It was 𝐤𝐻, however, that offered the solution. Blair, said girl looked up at the man who had just brought reality crashing down on her eyes pleading. I know it hurts now, but the pain will eventually pass. You say your purpose for dueling was so that you could fulfill your fantasies, and now without that you don't know what to do. The answer should be obvious. What do you mean? You must find another reason to duel. Right now, your heart feels as though there is a hole in it. By finding a new purpose for dueling, you will take the first steps to filling that hole in your heart. Blair's expression became thoughtful as she thought over the brunette's words. Well, 𝐤𝐻 turned to Naruto, and I know just the thing to help you. Watching two of the best duelists on the island go head to head. Naruto, said blonde quirked an eyebrow, a small smirk playing at his lips. At faculty meeting earlier today, it was to discuss who would be Duel Academy's representative for the upcoming school duel. It was decided that you and Bastion would have a duel off to determine which of you would serve as the rep. So Bastion and I finally get to have our big showdown, huh? And in front of the whole school no less, the small smirk steadily grew into one of his patented foxy smirks. I wouldn't have it any other way. I figured you say that. It's scheduled for tomorrow evening in the main arena. Then I best start getting ready, Bastion already has a head start on me. He then turned to his fellow blonde, Alexis, I leave Blair in your capable hands. I'll see you all tomorrow at the duel. With that he turned and made his way deeper into the forest, in the direction of his home. Smiling as she watched her crush's retreating form, Alexis turned to Blair, who she still had wrapped in a hug. Come on Blair, she said, drawing the younger teen's attention, you can stay in my dorm for tonight. I can only imagine what it must feel like trying to bunk with all the guys in Slifer. She finished with a small giggle. Even with everything that had happened this evening, Blair still managed a grateful smile at Alexis's offer. Thank you, Alexis, she said softly. I hope you guys liked the story. If you did, click on any of the videos which are popping on the screen right now. I promise you'll love them too. If you like my videos you can like and subscribe too. I'll see you on another amazing What If video guys. Love you all, peace.